choice, and thank you so much for having me here at Lifestyle Meditation. I just think this space is absolutely beautiful, and I'm really thrilled to be here, and especially on such a nice day for all of you coming in. And I don't know if you guys have had the rain, like we've had rain every weekend. So anyway, thank you all so much for coming in. I'm super excited. So what is intuition? I am the author of Yogini's Guide to Intuition as a Choice, and as well as the deck of oracle cards, Yogini's Guide to Intuition Oracle Cards. And because we sometimes follow our intuition, and then sometimes we don't. And sometimes we get, like we were talking, who was I talking to earlier today? Yeah, and you said, it just really intrigues you because sometimes you do follow that intuition and sometimes you don't. And then afterwards you go, damn it, I knew that was going to happen. So, hi, come on in.
Is Carrie Lynn here? Carrie Lynn? Okay, no, that's where I'm from.
Okay. This afternoon we're going to go through about what is intuition, how do we trust our intuition, and how can we move through the resistance or the reasoning or the self-doubt that we have so that we can keep following our intuitive guidance. Because I really believe that when we follow our intuition, we're going to really live on purpose. We're going to be in a flow of being on purpose, living in our dharma, and a flow of opportunities just keep coming, and we just keep being guided and following that magic as we keep connected to the intuition. But so many of us don't follow that intuitive guidance. So I want to start with a meditation and a bit of a grounding or a centering to bring us all into this space. So just sitting up nice and tall, just getting your hands onto your knees, just closing your eyes. And just begin by taking a nice deep breath, inhale, and exhale out through the mouth. And let's do that again. Let's take another deep breath. Inhale. And exhale out through the mouth. And I want you to imagine that you're hovering above yourself. That your soul is just hovering just above the top of your head. And with your next deep breath, I want you to imagine that that soul that's hovering above your head is going to drop into your body. So let's take another deep breath. Inhale. And as you're dropping into your body, start to feel the sensations in your body. Start to notice any tingles or twinges. Any soft, relaxed spots, any places where there might be a little restriction, tightness. And then as you're staying connected to your breath, keeping your breath nice and slow, bring your breath to any areas that might need just a little bit of extra energy right now. To soften and relax any areas. And now imagine there's a string of energy right at the pelvic floor, right at the root chakra, Muladhara chakra. And imagine that string of energy is going to go down through this building, down through the floor, down through the earth's crust, all the way down into the center of the earth. And imagine tying a golden nugget to the end of that string of energy. So you're really feeling connected to Mother Earth. But it's a string, so you're still able to sway and move in your own uniqueness. Bring your awareness up that string of energy. Just pausing at the root chakra. Connected to your culture, your safety, security, your family. What you were born into. What beliefs you were given. awareness up that string of energy to the second chakra, Svadhisthana chakra. The color is orange. And here, taking this opportunity to connect to passion, to creativity, to emotions and feelings, sexuality and sensuality. Now imagine that string of energy is coming up to the third chakra, solar plexus, just a couple inches above the belly button, behind your organs, but in front of your spine. The color here is yellow. And here you're going to connect to your will, to your empowerment, to how you're showing up in the world, and how you're allowing yourself to be seen. And bring your awareness up to the heart chakra, Anahata chakra. The color is green. And here you're going to connect to love, unconditional love and compassion, joy, grief, forgiveness, judgment. But let's connect to the love, the unconditional love. What do you love about your life? What brings you so much joy and happiness? How can you smile more and stress less? Now bringing the awareness up, that string of energy up to the throat chakra. Connecting here to the color blue, the Shuddha chakra. And here's this place of speaking our truth, deciding if the beliefs that we were given from our family, if they still resonate with us. It's where we make choices from. The place that we can be our authentic self, sing to our own tune. And bring your awareness up to your third eye, Ajna chakra. The color is indigo. And connecting here to your intuition, ideas, visions, dreams, ideas. Just taking a deep breath as you really are connecting to that inner guidance, that knowingness that you get. And then we're going to bring our awareness up that string of energy to our crown chakra. Sahasrara chakra, just hovering above the crown of our head. And here you're connecting to something greater than ourselves, to the spirit of your own understanding, to your guides, angels, God, goddesses. Knowing that you're not alone, that there's no separation. There's no separation between our body, our mind, and our spirit. There's no separation between us. What you do affects me. What I do affects you. As well as our connection to a higher power. Now imagine that string going all the way up into the heavens. And then just bringing your awareness back down that string. And just taking this opportunity to connect to your intention. What brought you here to this workshop today? There's no mistake that you were brought here. There's no mistake of the people who have gathered here. So what is your intention? What's your intention for being here? Maybe you want clarity. Maybe you're at a crossroads and you want guidance. Maybe you wanting validation for the intuitive hits that you're getting. Whatever the reason, just taking this opportunity to connect. My intention is to say what needs to be said as I'm guided, that I am opening up to spirit, to say the words that need to be heard, need to be said. And it's my intention to follow that guidance through this 2-hour workshop. So now once you have your intention, let's just bring our hands together at our heart center, a prayer, and let's send out our intention with a single Om. Let's take a deep breath, inhale. So that when you open your eyes, you just sort of flutter your eyes so the outside world doesn't come in too quickly. Okay, so what is intuition? So before we get started, I just want to remind, we are going to share some stories. I'm going to share some of my stories. I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to talk as well. So just a reminder that of confidentiality and making sure that when you leave, we don't talk about each other's stories, and we want to create a safe place, and just being cognizant of time, that we're here for 2 hours, and I want everyone to get an opportunity to speak. And alrighty, so we have some handouts. We'll just give it a minute, and then we're going to hand it out some questions. But so I never began, or ever in my wildest dreams thought I would ever be talking about intuition. My background is, I started meditating at 13 years old. My parents were stressed out, self-employed parents of 3 teenagers, and my mom was prescribed Valium, and my mom and dad were watching Johnny Carson, and the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi was on Johnny Carson, and I know I'm dating myself, but Jill already told everybody how old I was. And so my mom and dad decided to take our entire family to learn transcendental meditation when I was 13 years old. So it started this practice of meditating in our household every day. And so, and then at 16 I became a vegetarian. So there was always this aspect of yoga in my life, and I always was very active and would do yoga postures on the front lawn, not knowing that they were yoga postures. I thought it was gymnastics. I really wanted to take gymnastics. And so then I became a social worker. I knew I wanted to be of service. I knew I wanted to help, and so I went to U of C, or Mount Royal University, and became a social worker. At the time it was college, and then I went to U of C. And so then I started doing that and worked in Calgary in social services. And then after I had my children, I knew I didn't want to bring that energy into my house. It was a real conscious decision. I wanted to be of service and I wanted to help, but I didn't want to bring in the energy of being a social worker into my home. And so it was during meditation that I got the really clear intuitive hit to become a yoga instructor. So it all, again, my youngest son was just a baby, and it just fell into place that it all worked out that I was able to go and I took yoga therapy at the time. And so I became a yoga therapist. And what really stuck out for me is this whole body, mind, spirit, bringing it together with talk therapy. And so I spent the last now it's 20 years, married together talk therapy with mind, body, spirit. And then I studied the chakras and became a chakra therapist, and then it made even more sense. And so then I took the therapy into more intuitive counseling and intuitive coaching instead of one or the other. And so then I'm getting confused on my years. So 2012, I did my vision board up, and I had already done Off the Mat into the World's training. I don't know if you know who they are, but Sean Corn, and a lot of people know who she is. So I'd already done a lot of her training. I'd heard about this Global Save It Challenge, but I never had any intention of ever doing it. But I was doing my vision board. It was November, and I wanted to be global, and I wanted to work with Off the Mat people, and I put on India. And so then 2 months later, I found out got an email from Off the Mat saying that their Global Save It Challenge 2013 was to India. And I got the intuitive hit. I knew intuitively, instantly, I needed to do it. I knew I had to do this Global Save It Challenge. So that was my first, it was just, boom, I have to do this. That was my first thought. So then the second thought is, well, how is this going to affect my family? How is this going to affect my business? I had a yoga studio in Grand Prairie. How is this going to affect my household and my life? And who am I? Who the hell am I to do that, right? And so I sat with it. And usually I'm a pretty action person, but I sat with it because I didn't know how I was ever going to be able to do it. And then I was at the hockey rink, sitting talking to a friend on the bench, and I heard the words coming out of my mouth. I don't want to be on my deathbed and wish that I had at least tried to raise this money for these young girls in India. And when I heard myself saying that, I knew I had to do it. And so then I signed up that next day, and I raised the money very easily. In 9 months, I raised the $20,000. And yes, I live in an amazing community that really helped me out and provided, but I believe that when we're in this flow, things just happen really quickly and easily. So then I came home, I got the raised money, and so then I was going to, because I raised the money, I got to go to India to see the organizations where the money was going to go to. And so I had organized different people to rent my studio space and to run workshops and classes and teach while I was going to be gone. And then 6 weeks before I left, or 5 weeks before I was leaving, again, I got the really clear intuitive hit to sell my studio. And so I thought, okay, I'm selling my studio. And 2 days before I left to go to India, I handed over my keys. And so what it did is, and I had no idea, and my husband is like, are you nuts? You're only going for 6 weeks, right? What are you doing? And you love it. And so I did it. I handed over the keys, and I went to India, and I came back, and I had no idea what I was going to do. And really what I did is for about 6 months is I healed, because going into these red light districts, going into this experience of India was really horrifying, right? It was really hard. Because I was a social worker, I thought, okay, we'll be going to group homes. There'll be about 15 to 20 girls. They'll be about 17, 18 years old. We drove into complexes, and there was 150 to 200 girls that had been rescued, and they were as young as 8 years old, and some of them were moms themselves. So the whole trauma and the whole experience, the whole hopelessness that I felt from doing that, I brought that home. So it took me some time to heal, and I would go between crying and pissed off. I was like, right? How is this happening? So what happened though, what it did is it opened up time and space for me to create a deck of oracle cards. At that time, I'd already taught for 17 years, and I knew I was going to create a deck of oracle cards because when I was teaching yoga, I would get the intuitive hits as to what the yoga postures meant on a spiritual level, and so I would keep notes. And I knew I was writing a deck of cards, and so I would keep writing down what they meant. And I even started at one point working with an artist that she was a student of mine, and then it got really confusing because, well, there's 54 cards in the deck. And if you've worked with oracle cards, a lot of the oracle cards are really ornate. They have a lot of artwork on them and a lot of design on them. And so she did just the most amazing artwork, but I couldn't afford to buy all of the pieces of art from her, right? And then whose art is it? It got confusing. So we just let it drop. Well, when I came back from India and started writing the oracle cards, my daughter was luckily in art school, and she was going to ACAD in Calgary and taking fine arts. And so I asked her if she would be interested in doing the artwork. And she had a real vision. And of course, being my daughter, she'd grown up around yoga her whole life. And so she had a really clear vision of what she wanted them to look like. And I just let her, you've got a vision, that's amazing, you just go for it. And so then as I was editing the cards, I knew there was a book. And I knew I wanted to tell more about it. And so that's how the book came about. So there's 54 cards in the book, or in the deck, because 54 is a half of 108, and 108 is a sacred number. In our mullahs, there's 108 beads that we pray for each of the beads. And then in the book is 54 chapters, the same as the card. So each chapter in the book starts with the image, and then the divinatory part, and then how to bring it into our everyday life. Because it's not about doing yoga, doing meditation, like even Mandy was talking about that last night. It's about taking it home and living this way. It's about meditating every day, moving our body every day, really living these aspects. So that's it in a nutshell. So then, because my book was titled, last part of the story is, then somebody was asking me, what is your book about? And yoga, and I don't know. And so she said, describe your book in 4 words. And I sat there for a minute, and it just popped into my head, intuition is a choice. And so that's how I got the title of the book. And so as a result of the title has guided me into talking about intuition. And then I realized how much I had always been following that intuitive guidance, or not, and sometimes not. And so that's how I came to talk about intuition. And just days after, not a month after my book came out, is when I was asked to do my TED Talk on intuition. And that's another story. My sister and I were editing my book, and as we were editing my book, she had the hard copy and I had the computer, and she's reading one chapter, and she looks at me and she said, you should do a TED Talk on this subject. Yes, I should do a TED Talk. I thought it was the most ridiculous thing in the world. Like, how would I ever get that opportunity? But I just started documenting, started writing down what the TED Talks would be, because she would say this over and over again of different chapters. And so, yes, 5 months later, I was asked to do a TED Talk on intuition. And so that's how I started talking about intuition. And so how do we get our intuition? How do we know we're getting an intuitive hit, and what does it feel like? So I believe our intuition is just another one of our senses, like touch, taste, sight, smell, sound, but also that there's no separation between body, mind, spirit. So when we get an intuitive hit, we're going to get a physical reaction. So what are the physical reactions that we get when we get intuition? So yes, frog in the throat, really clear sign to me that I have a message. So if I am talking to somebody, and then all of a sudden I start to get this frog in my throat, I know there's a message coming for them through me. I get an itchy nose. I rub my forehead a lot, my third eye, and I scratch the top of my head. And so these are all like itchy things. And it's I believe that the angels and guides aren't far away, that they're close and they're trying to communicate with us. Often when I get to bed, my ears start to get itchy. And so, like, I love that you're nodding, you guys are all nodding your heads, right? So those are some of the, I know we're all going to be scratching and itchiness. So those are some of the ways that I get my intuition. The gut instinct, right? Like, they use these terms for a reason, because they make sense, right? Gut instinct. So we know in our gut when we're following our intuition and when we're not, or we can use our gut as a really, really strong gauge. Some people get this real calm that comes, like it's a real calm in their heart, and they just know something, or they just know that they need to do that. Some people get tension in their neck and shoulders. When you're talking to somebody and then you get tingly skin, to me that's truth, that whatever the conversation is, that there's a real truth to what's being said. So I'm going to get Jill to pass out the first part of the questionnaire. So the questions are, take this opportunity, this moment, to think about how you get intuitive hits. Oh, actually, this is different. First of all, let's introduce ourselves, and I want you to share how you get your intuitive hits. How do you feel your sensations in your body? So we can start here or here, whoever wants to go first.
Yeah, I'm Jackie, for those of you that don't know me, and I work here.
Okay, yeah. Because I think honestly, like that spirit going, yes, that's truth. You need to do that. Yeah.
So yeah, for me that's the biggest indicator for me.
Awesome. The tingly skin. Thanks, Ty.
Hi, my name is Kelly. I'm not really sure yet. That's what I'm trying to figure out. So I'm not. There's a lot of signs, but I don't know which one is.
Okay, so do you ever get that? You'll hear everybody else's, and you go, oh yeah, I get that. Oh, I get that. Do you ever get the goosebumps? Yeah. Yeah. Awesome.
I'm Marissa. I'm Marissa as well. I get mine as like, well, I feel it first before it comes into my body, and it's almost like it's my voice, but it's like somebody next to me says it, and it's like the first thing that pops into my head, and it's like, where did that come from? And then in my body, if I don't get that, like what Jackie says, if it's coming from somebody else, I get like a lot of tingles on the top of my head, and yeah, goosebumps or chills. Yeah, like cold chills, like someone just turned on the air conditioning.
And is it more at your back?
More, I think like arms. Tingles is like on top back of my head, and then goosebumps is just like.
But the cold, does it come up your back or come from behind you?
Probably.
That's goddess energy. That's my definition of what it is. Like, just over the years, I just interpret different sensations as different things. And whenever I get that cold, it's like, oh, we got the girls are in the house. We got the goddesses are in the house. And that's what I take it as, is goddess feminine energy. Awesome.
I'm Nicole, and I don't know if there's a feeling, there's kind of like thoughts. There aren't my thoughts, but the thoughts are there.
Right.
So, but I don't really notice the physical feelings.
So it's that inner knowing. Like, are there words?
It's more like it's like a sound almost. It's like they're my thoughts. It's in my head, but I know they're not my thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And I noticed that you did this, right? Like you went to the side. Like I get messages and they go across my forehead, like a teleprompter as well.
Mine are like from the back. Like,
yeah. And just,
here.
yeah. So I think this is even me being aware, like helping you be aware that it's your left side and it's coming up your back. Because I always would talk about me getting the messages across my forehead, and I noticed I was always going right to left. I never did left to right. Yeah, so it's always this side and it's always coming up. You know, and then they talk left brain, right? Like, so, yeah, interesting. Okay, thanks, Nicole.
I'm Audrey, and a lot of my intuition is with people.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's where I instantly seem to know if I trust them or I don't trust them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a feeling, I'm not even sure how. I also get a lot of tingling in the back on my right side.
Okay.
And across the back of my neck, it gets feels like something kind of pulling. And I do get goosebumps. I got goosebumps right now, actually.
So, okay, I've never heard this one, but you know how they have that saying, the hairs on the back of your neck stand up? That's
Well,
bad.
it's just like the back of my from my neck into my scalp just kind of tightens. And I don't know. It's like
Is it a warning?
Cold there.
And does it feel like a warning?
No, I do know that one time I was at a workshop and I just kept getting this feeling and crawling, and I kept going like this. And in fact, I was getting it when I first got in here. My whole head gets really itchy. And the lady that was doing the workshop came up to me after and she said to me, "Has your husband passed away?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "He's been here playing with your hair the whole time." So when I get that, I always think, okay, he's telling me something. He's here. He's supporting me. He's whatever. You know?
Yeah.
Because it's always in this same place. If I go to a concert and I know that it's something he would have really enjoyed, I often get there saying, okay, he's here.
Right. And even like doing this, he's like, this is an opportunity for him to get connected to you more,
Right.
right? And then you had that gunk in your throat too.
I did just today, yeah.
And so the way you, the feelings you get about people, is it just like an instant of what they do or who they are?
No, I
or-
started a new job and I was working with a whole bunch of people, and I came home and my husband said to me, "How was work?" And I said, "Good." And he said, "You think you're gonna like it?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Everybody was nice." And I said, "Yeah, but there's 3 people I'm gonna, avoid kind of." And he said, "Why?" And I said, "I don't know. That's just how I felt when I met them. And just, I'll be friendly, but I'm not gonna get." And it turned out after 4 years that I was right. They were kind of backstabbers. They were kind of gossipers. They were kind of.
Yeah.
So I just knew that, and I don't know how I knew that.
Yeah, yeah. Just knew it. Awesome. Thanks, Sandra.
I'm Tanya, and I'm here to start listening more to my intuition. I can't say I have physical sensations, although my head has been really itching me since you started talking.
Power of suggestion.
But I've had recently just a lot of like bad things happen that I knew it was gonna happen before it happened, and I'm like, but I try to talk myself out of it, like stop worrying. That's not gonna happen. There's no way that's gonna happen. But I have such a strong, almost like visualization that it happens, and then it happens, and I'm like, oh, why didn't I say anything? And so I'm really starting to pick up on little things and go, okay, before I send this email, I'm just about to hit send, and then I'm like, I think you should double check it, and then I realize one of my links is wrong. And it's like just little things like that come up, and I'm like trying to listen more to those subtle suggestions that I need to pay more attention to my intuition. And the same, I feel like I read people well and get a feeling of the type of person that they are when I meet them.
Yeah, so you can really pick up on the different energy level layers. Yeah. And so does it feel like your intuition has let you down? Because, like, does it feel like those bad things happened and you didn't get an intuitive hit, or you did get an intuitive hit and you didn't listen?
I didn't listen.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like I'm letting my intuition down because I'm not listening to it.
Yeah.
And I just recently this year I realized like things kept happening, and like if only I had said something and spoken up, that wouldn't have happened. If I had listened to myself, that wouldn't have happened. So I know like intuition is something that keeps coming up for me. Like even when this came up just a few days ago on my Facebook, I'm like, I just knew I had to take it. I didn't know anything about it, but like I really want to work on it and listen
Right.
more.
Yeah.
So listen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Pay attention.
Yeah, great,
Yeah.
thanks.
I'm Jill. For me, it's total goosebumps, and it's just like that give me the chills. Like so, they kind of starts, in my fingers and works its way up. So that's the physical sensation that I get. Yeah, and I didn't really notice getting the frog in my throat, but since I've known you, I'm aware of that. Yeah, so I do get that too. That all of a sudden, and then just before we came in here today, I kept trying to have a conversation out there by the Buddha,
Yeah,
and I had to keep
clearing your throat.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Awesome, thanks, Jill.
I'm Kendra, and I think I didn't realize I was getting everything you described. Basically, I've experienced, and I didn't realize that was intuitive hits.
Okay.
I'm glad you mentioned about the ears, because I thought I was crazy because I have itchy ears sometimes, like inside almost, like where it like tickly.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I just feel like that's kind of crazy. But I also get like a feeling of like a cobweb, like the cobweb feelings, like there's like a hair on me or something
Yeah.
delicate on me
Yeah.
that I'm always like kind of brushing away, and it's like, I get that too. And
Yeah. So that would be guides for sure.
Yeah.
Angels and guides. Do you ever see like shadows, like dark shadows running across out of your peripheral
Yeah.
vision? Yeah. Anybody else get that? Yeah. I had one last week, like just major. I kept going by. Like I was on a session, I'm like, I kept turning, and I'm like, sorry, I need to pay attention, but I keep seeing somebody looking by. Yeah. Awesome. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Krista. I guess I just get this knowing
kind of from within, and like I'm not even expecting it, and then it just comes up in my thoughts. And sometimes I'm like, oh, I thought that, and then it comes into reality, and I'm like, whoa. So it's all these sort of synchronicities that are kind of popping up.
Right.
Gemstones, like if I see someone wearing one, I'll feel compelled to ask them about it, and usually a big story comes out about why they're wearing it.
Right.
So I've met a lot of people through the gemstones. Physically, I don't know if my joints always like they crack quite a bit, but they're not. It's not painful or anything. So I don't know whether that's like because I've never really thought about the physical aspect of it, but
Right.
I do crack like.
Well, like it's energy, right? So
I
it
don't know
would
if I'm
be
just
like
losing
energy
it
coming
or what,
through.
but
Yeah.
my joints crack quite a bit. Like even if I do like Reiki or something like that, or after, I'm always feeling compelled to just like
Right.
crack my joints.
And do you ever, when you're doing Reiki, do you ever feel nauseous or
I haven't really done a ton, like.
or your nose starts running or?
Not that I've really been aware of. Lately, my nose has been a little bit runny though. But
Okay.
and sometimes I do the whole, like I can almost feel my nose like do a little like rabbit thing. You know what I mean? Like a little.
Yeah.
A
Little bewitched.
And I'm like, okay. I need to be more conscious of the physical, I think.
Yeah, and thanks. And that's why I want to really, that's one of the things about bringing in the yoga aspect of it is really that because we are going to have a physical reaction, right? There's no separation, so there's always going to be a physical reaction. So I think that's good that it's just opening up that awareness. So I believe our intuition is our soul speaking to us. And I feel like when we can follow our intuition, like if our intuition is our soul speaking to us and we're not listening to her, then we're not doing what our soul is supposed to be doing in this lifetime. And then we get unhappy and we get stuck in jobs and relationships and life situations that are hurting us or don't feed us and make us feel bad. And so this is why I think it's so important for us to continue to develop our intuition and keep looking towards it and keep listening to it and trying to follow it. And when we do that, then we're really going to be fulfilling our greatness, living our dharma, living our purpose. So who here is here for, knows that they're here for something great? Pretty much everybody? Yeah, like we know, a lot of times we think, oh, there's got to be something more than this, right? There's got to be something more. And so, and that's why we do our inner work. That's why we come to meditation and yoga and to different things, is to connect to that and to know that, because we know we're here for something better. So I'm going to read you Marianne Williamson's quote. I just absolutely love it. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine, as children do. We are born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. So if we're all here for greatness, then we really need to start to trust that inner guidance that we're getting and the inspiration and ideas that we're getting. So I want you to take a moment to come to the questions. Take a moment and think about an intuitive hit you had. Write down when you got an intuitive hit. if you can, where did you feel it in your body? I know we just did a lot about the body. So how did it come to you? What were some of the sensations? Like our intuition is that knowingness that we get. We just know something to be true, that we have to do it. Share a story, and it was on my TED Talk, so if you've seen my TED Talk, you will have seen it. But our family went on a vacation to Costa Rica, and the kids were a little bit older, and so we were on our way home from vacation, and the 3 kids were sitting in their seat, and my husband and I were a few seats back, sitting together. And the kids came back to where I was sitting and said, "Can we get the camera to look at the pictures?" And I instantly got the intuitive hit that the camera's going to get left on the plane. Instantly, I knew that camera was going to get left on the plane. But, you know, what do I do? Do I deny my kids a chance to look at their photos from their vacation? Or do I, so I gave them the camera, and I thought, note to self, do not leave this camera on the plane, do not leave this camera on the plane, do not leave this camera on the plane. So they went and they looked at the photos. And then during the flight, I went up and I was talking to them, and I saw the camera in the pocket seat with the strap hanging out. And so I asked, "Are you done with the camera?" And we're still looking at them. And so I said, "Okay, don't leave the camera, don't leave the camera, don't leave the camera." And I mean, you know what happened, right? So anyway, we were debarking the plane, and I was following, like the kids had gone, and I was following down. And so I got to their seat, and I took one step into the aisle, or into their seats, and I looked at each pocket, no camera. And I thought, okay, maybe I'm wrong. They got the camera, awesome. So we get out to to get our suitcases. We had to make a connection. And I said to my kids, "Did you get the camera?" And the look on my daughter's face, she went, "No!" And I'm like, shit. And so the plane was still there, and we tried to get it back, but there was no way we were going to be able to get this camera back. And we wrote them letters after and everything. We never did get it back. But what I didn't say on the TED Talk is that about a month or 6 weeks earlier, I had lost my camera another time, but I got it back. And so then I thought, well, I got it back last time, I'll probably get it back this time. But then what I believe, though, is that intuition said, you didn't learn last time. You are going to learn this time, sister. And so I did. It was a big fat lesson, and I was really sad. I mean, we had bought some of those discs with photos, and it was fine. But so it was a big learning because I had got the intuitive hit. I knew that was going to happen. So anybody want to share when they just got this knowing that something was going to happen?
Just exactly what you just shared. My wake-up call was a few months ago. I met somebody. We were going to go on vacation together. So it was a new relationship, and he was a photographer, so we were going to do photography together.
Right.
So we booked this trip, and he wanted this brand new camera. It was just going to be released. And we pushed so hard to get this camera before our trip. So we got it like 3 days before the trip. Before he even got it, I knew in my it's gonna get stolen. I just knew, and I didn't say anything. I'm like, he's gonna think you're, a little bit off if you're like, oh, I think that camera's gonna get stolen. And even when we booked the trip, we had 2 places to choose from, and he chose the one. I'm like, ooh, I wouldn't pick that. I would have went the other way. I had like a vibe. Like that's not the choice.
Yeah.
Still didn't say anything. And so of course we trunk our stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and in my thought, I'm like, ooh, but it was like a split decision going to the beach. I don't want to carry my purse and
Yeah.
backpack and stuff. And we were walking, and I just got this vibe from this person when I went to the washroom. And I was like, this feeling inside me, like this is not a good person. And even as we were walking, like down the beach, I'm like, oh, I don't think that was a good idea. Why didn't I bring my phone to take pictures of the beach? Why didn't he bring his camera to take pictures of the beach? And I couldn't relax the whole time. Like we were on the beach, and as soon as I came back to the car, the window had been smashed, and someone popped the top and grabbed the stuff and got it. So we didn't even go on our vacation.
Oh, wow.
So because I had no passport, everything was gone. And
Ah.
that was my thing, like, you need to start listening to this signal. You had all these signals and you didn't listen to any of them.
Any of them.
And so that was like the first time I was like, I need to start listening and paying attention
Mm-hmm.
to all the signs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Or not awesome, but awesome
It
story.
wasn't awesome.
No, it's horrible story, but awesome that awesome that you know now, right? Like it's like that you got that awareness, not instead of going into victim.
Well, I always try
Right?
to justify it. I'm like, you worry a lot. Your mom used to worry a lot. Don't worry. Like, stop.
Mhm.
And
That's
I
what we're going to be going in. Yeah, that's what we're going to be. I know, and that's actually where I was going. Awesome. I'm like, okay, well, that's going to take us right into the next thing I want to talk about. But yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. Let's. If anybody else want to talk about when they got their inner knowing?
I just bought a computer, which I haven't had a computer. I've had a computer for 2 years.
Yeah.
And I bought it 2 weeks ago, and I haven't used it yet because I've been back to Best Buy like 5 times. But I knew right away, instantly before I bought that computer, that I shouldn't be buying this computer right now. Instantly. The reason I wanted a computer because I want to get looking for a new job. So someone's telling me like, just wait a bit, you know.
Mhm.
I've been waiting a long time to get a new job, but I haven't used the computer because I went back to and nothing's working right on the computer. It's perfectly fine, but now I have to call Shaw. So the Shaw issue, but I knew like everything about it said don't do it. I had a bad day that day. I knew I should have got it.
And can you take it back or no?
I can.
Okay.
So that's why I haven't really played on it. So I'm just like, I don't know what to do right now. It's like, should I take it back?
Well, and just
like I need a computer though. I'm just like, okay.
And FYI, but Mercury just went retrograde on Thursday, so that screws with all computers. So, but if it was happening before, it might be. When did you buy it? You didn't buy it Thursday.
No, I bought it 2 weeks ago. No. So, on a Saturday.
Mm.
So I go back and forth. It's just the craziest thing. I'm like, why isn't everything nothing simple for me? I just needed a computer,
But it's because you didn't follow that guidance, right? Like you knew right from the beginning.
I
So
knew, right? I remember. I knew that day. I'm like, you don't.
yeah, I'd almost take it back and start over. I'd take it back.
I was thinking of that.
And just start over and follow that intuitive guidance that goes, oh yeah, this is the computer now. This is what's supposed to happen. Yeah, and put it out there that I want a new computer. Yeah. Yeah, awesome.
When they ask for your reason for return, just put bad energy.
Yeah. Mercury is retrograde. Thank you very much. Yeah. Anybody else?
I had needed somewhere to live. I had ended a very long-term relationship and was living with my mom and then bouncing around from place to place, staying at my house, staying at a house someone was house sitting for, and thought about all the things that I wanted in a place. And for 4 days in a row, a memory popped
So I believe our intuition is, as I said, another one of our senses, just like touch, taste, sight, smell, sound. Sound, sight, touch, taste, smell, and intuition. And like all of the other senses, intuition can be more developed, that we can practice and we can work on it and we can validate ourselves and we can actually develop it. Just like a chef can make a plate of food and can taste the different, they eat the food and they can taste all the different ingredients in it, they can taste the spices, if, whatever it needs or doesn't need, they can taste what the food is. So they have a really developed sense of taste. A musician can hear a piece of music and knows all the different instruments that are playing and what key it's in and all of that. So they've developed those senses. I don't have that kind of developed senses, but I have developed my intuition, and I think all of us that we can all start to develop our intuition. And I don't know why it hasn't gotten the recognition as all of the other senses, but somehow it hasn't, and it's considered woo-woo or out there. I mean, you can't see smell, so I don't know why that makes more sense to people than, I think it's because that people who decided didn't have a very strong sense of intuition, right? So, and that goes to the question is, are women more intuitive than men? I don't really think so. I think men in business, they make gut instincts all the time, and I think they do follow their intuition just the same as we do. And again, it can be more developed or less developed. And so I think it's important to recognize our intuition, and then it's going into trusting it. Like, how do we trust it? And why don't we trust it? So we get this intuitive hit over and over, like we get all these different intuitive hits that are talking to us, and why aren't we trusting it? So some of the reasons we don't trust it is because of society, that we're not taught to trust it, we're not taught to even appreciate it or recognize it, or it's not given any value it. But it's not only just society, it's also ourselves. Like, sometimes as the words are coming out of our mouths, we don't understand why we're saying what we're saying. We're not, like, you can't explain it, so you have to just say, oh, I have a gut instinct, right? And then people go, whatever, right? And so we don't want to be humiliated. We don't want to be ridiculed for saying it. We don't want to, them to think that we're crazy or, making shit up. And then also, what if we're wrong, right? What if we're wrong? Because the decisions that we're making, our intuitive decisions, can influence our whole families. They can influence our partners, our children, our households, our communities, it can influence a lot of people. And so what if we're wrong? But I don't believe we're ever wrong. Like, I don't believe that we're ever off our path. So, like, you didn't follow that intuitive guidance, but it led you to different things, and I believe there was a lot of life lessons in there. The same with me with the camera. That was a big wake-up call. And then look at how many years later, 4 or 5 years later, I'm talking about intuition, right? When I knew I got that clear intuitive hit. So same with you. Like, I don't know what's happening with that relationship now, but it's over, right? Yeah, so who knows that maybe it, and you really recognized your intuition there. So you were really super aware of it. And that's what I really love about your story, is that how aware you were, and so what you learned from that is huge. I mean, you're here even to do that. So trusting our intuition can be really, really hard for us. It can be really challenging, and because our intuition is going to push us out of our comfort zone. So let's go to the next set of questions. It's in the silence that we're going to get the answers. So I love that we're in lifestyle meditation, because this is all about meditation, and I'm all about meditation. We need to meditate so that we can hear the messages that we're getting. So I want you to write down when you knew something instantly to be truth, something that you had to do, like you just absolutely had to do it. Did you get or almost get caught up in the reasoning or self-doubt? And what was the outcome or the result of your action? telling you that story about selling my studio before I was going to India. So I got a really clear intuitive hit to let the studio go. It's done. Time is done. And so I said to my husband, I'm getting rid of my studio. And of course he's like, what? You're the only person I know that loves their job so much. And I said, I just need to let it go. And so I phoned my landlord and said, I'm going to let the studio go. And because it was like this now was January 5th or January 7th or something, I'm going to give you the rest of January and all of February. And then I was going to reach out to all the people that used my studio or after that. But so I said, I'm going to be giving you notice to give up the rent. And the funny thing was that I had agreed for another year in September, and I had given her all the post-dated checks, but she kept forgetting to get me the contract, the lease. Mm-hmm. And so I phoned her up and I said, so you never did get me that lease. And every time I saw her, she's like, oh, I gotta get that lease to you. I'd rent this space for year after year after year, right? So she kept, I gotta get that lease to you. And I'm like, yeah. But I'd given her all the post-dated checks, I was all ready. And so I said, so I never did sign that lease. So does that mean it goes month to month then? And she said, yes, it does. And I said, okay, well, I'm giving you 8 weeks notice or 7 weeks notice, however much it was. And I told her what was happening. I was going to India and I was going to be gone for 6 weeks. And she said to me, she goes, okay, we'll give you a free month's rent. Oh, okay. I have to think about this now, right? Because now it's like resistance is coming in and I'm starting to question and I'm not certain anymore. And so what I did is I went back to that body, mind, spirit, and I said out loud, I'm going to keep the studio. And my gut went, it pulled in and it went, no, you're not. Nope. It was just this real clear, nope. And then I went, okay, I'm going to get rid of the studio. And it was just nothing. Like it was calm. And so I just knew and I just had to trust that. But trying to tell my students of 17 years, I'm closing the studio down. And so what I did is I started phoning all the people I knew that used my yoga studio, rented the space and taught there or whatever. And so finally the very last person I talked to who only rented it like a couple hours every couple weeks, she took it over. And she got the studio. So this is why it's so hard is because sometimes we don't have a clue. We can't see a bigger picture and we have no idea why we're being asked, we're getting this intuitive hit to do something. When because my studio was it was not a very big studio, but it had a little front entrance where everyone could sit, and then I had an office so I could do intuitive coaching, and I did workshops, and I taught yoga, and it was a really perfect space, right? But I had to follow that intuitive guidance because I knew I had this knowing that there was something else for me to be going to afterwards. So now, so these were the questions. Write down when you knew something that you had to do that was something instantly to be true that you needed to do. Does anybody else want to share?
I have been at a company for 20 years, and if anyone knows anything about pensions and stuff, this company had a defined pension that I was on, and things had been changing, and they had been restructuring things, and I just felt like it wasn't the family company that even though it's a big company, it wasn't the family feeling that it used to be. My old boss had retired. I got a promotion into a supervisory position, and things just didn't feel right. And I just instantly felt that I had to go. And everyone was trying to talk me out of it. Are you kidding me? You've been here for 20 years. How can you leave? You're on the defined pension. I knew that I had
And what
to
did the
go.
defined pension mean? That you weren't going to, you'd have to stay how many more years to get it?
They invest the money for you.
Right?
So now they don't offer that anywhere anymore in any companies. And it used to be a big thing with the government, and it used to be a big thing with some of the
Oh, so
private
if you stayed
companies.
longer, you'd be accumulating.
They take your money and invest it for you. Whereas now the new pension plans are you pick your own stocks and bonds and investments and stuff, so you're responsible for your own money.
Right.
Whereas the defined pension, the company takes care of it for you, and they do all of the investing and make all the money on it for you. So it's actually a better deal for you in the long run.
Right.
But they don't offer that anymore at any companies.
leave. And I, being female in this type of industry as well was really tough to get into a supervisory role. So I felt like I needed to go. And when I think about staying, I would always get like a panicky feeling. And yet when I thought about leaving, it was calm. So I knew I had to go. And ultimately it led me here. But
Yeah, so I was going to say, so what's the result?
Yeah.
The result is working here in such a beautiful space.
Yeah.
And how do you feel?
I had a couple of jobs before I came here, but nothing felt right.
Yeah.
But I'm just telling somebody just today I'm making less than a third of what I used to make, but I'm also not, on stress medication and high blood pressure medication. Like I'm off of everything since I started working here. Like the trade-off was my health and my
And your life.
mental state.
Your life probably. Like if you had been stayed on that for another 15 years.
Yeah.
Right? Like it sounds like you were pretty young still. Like
Sure.
yeah, right? Like right? And so you're looking at another 15 years.
Yeah.
It could kill you.
Yeah.
And
it
that's
probably would have. I was
it's
stressed
true.
to the hilt.
yeah. Wow. Good for you. Yay! Love that. All right, anybody else want to share?
And, I was talking to Jill earlier that I was an elementary teacher for over 15 years, and the last year that I was teaching, it was every year was progressively getting further away from why I got into teaching in the first place. And it had just gotten to a point where, like Jackie, you were saying, like I'm like, if I go any further, my health is gonna suffer. Like mentally, I'm suffering. Like the stress was so bad. I was like not eating, not sleeping. I had 2 little ones at home. Like it was just I didn't want to bring that energy home. And but you have all these like things fighting you on that decision. Because like in my gut, I knew I'm like I have to just resign. But then part of me was like, what were all these years for if you're just gonna leave it? Like, all that work and sacrifice and stuff. And then also things like, the pay was really good, our benefits were amazing, summer holidays with the kids, like all these pension, like all these reasons to stay.
Right.
Even my principal at the time, she was willing to like create a new position for me in the school, but not necessarily in the classroom because she wanted to keep me on. And all these, and your colleagues are like, no, you can't leave, like, and the parents were like, no, like you're just so good at what you do, like you need to stay. And I just knew, like you were saying, like the thought of staying, like made me want to throw up. Like I was just like, I need to, like I get emotional about it now.
Yeah. And how long has that been?
This is my 3rd year home, like with my kids, and sometimes I do miss working, but at the same time I'm like, what a gift to be able to stay home with them too. But best decision ever. Yeah, because you think about where I'd be at if I had stayed.
Yeah, and if you hadn't gone back, like if you hadn't had the kids and hadn't gone back to teaching, you might not appreciate being at home with them as much. Yeah. Either, right? Like it's such a, now you're like so in gratitude and know that it's such a gift. Yeah. Yeah.
It's interesting when you have people trying to block your decision, right? Or like trying to change your mind about it, and you personally know this is my right path. And it's, even my husband is like, well, what are you gonna do now? And I'm like, I don't know. Like I want to teach, but just maybe not in school.
Yeah. So. And the tears, like feeling emotional, was because of how it felt being under that much stress. Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing.
That's probably one of the reasons why I'm here. Because just this week, actually, 2 weeks ago, I broke down, and I realized I wasn't happy at my job, but it was the only source of income for me. But I really have been feeling more connected to doing my own thing and getting that going. So I've been, since the relationship ended, I had a lot of extra time to work on my own business.
Yeah, and because you're so connected to your intuition, just keep following that internal guidance, right? Like you're going to get told to, phone somebody, like you know, or email somebody, or text. Was it texting? Yeah, you're supposed to text that person, or just make sure you follow that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it'll just lead you exactly where you need to go.
It'll work out.
Yeah. Awesome. Great. Okay, anybody else? How about getting caught up in the reasoning or self-doubt? I in my notes here I have about when we bought our house, right? And I had to convince my husband that it's a funny story because the day that we went to look at the house, we actually had an argument because I had circled 3 houses to look at, and 2 were in the city and 1 was in the country. And he wanted to live in the country, and I didn't want to live in the country. And so on the day we were going to go look at these houses, we looked at the 2 in the city first. We went to one, instantly no. The other one, instantly no. And we went to the 3rd one, and it was probably the fastest walkthrough we ever did in a house. We went out the door, got in the car, and my husband looked at me and said, "Well," and I said, "That's our house." And he's like, "What? Wait a minute." That doesn't make sense. And so then I had to really convince him. And then I remember, we went home and I was like trying to convince him all the way home. And then we got home and he went and did whatever. And I called my dad, and my dad's like, "Make an offer." And I'm like, "Okay, let's get this offer going. We got to do it." And yeah, so, and we've been there 17 years, and it was the best decision we ever made. But yeah, so this is what happens, right? We get this intuitive hit, and then how do we move through explaining it to other people and convincing them? And like leaving your jobs are, like me selling the studio. It's like nobody understands it, and it's like we can't explain it.
I find I get stuck here when I do try to explain. Like it's
in a throat chopper.
I don't even know what words to use, or like.
Yeah.
And that's why I tend to not follow through or whatever, because I'm worried about other people's opinions about what I'm thinking, or like.
I know, and wouldn't it be nice if we started changing the languaging? Like, oh, I got a vibe, or I got an intuitive hit that I have to do this. Like, wouldn't it be nice if we started changing that languaging in our communities, like in our groups of people? Yeah. Alrighty, so. So we're moving into the next part. So once we get the intuitive hit, we trust that we have an intuitive hit. We start to tell somebody that we're going to do this, and we have moved through the reasoning. Then we get pushed to our edge, right? There because like I said, our soul wants us to move into our greatness, right? So how can we continue to recognize our intuition and move through all of that fear and self-doubt, and like how can we keep moving through that? And so here's the next set of questions. How can you continue to recognize and trust your intuition? What does your soul want for you in this lifetime? And actually, you guys, you know what? We have enough time. I want to take you through a meditation before we answer these questions. I wasn't sure we were going to have time, but we are. So I want you to just sit up and get comfortable. Get you nice and comfortable. And if anybody's at a crossroads or wanting to make a decision, this is going to help you get kind of a little bit more clarity. Let's begin by deepening the breath. Slowing the breath down. Connecting to the sensations in your body. Noting your inhalations and exhalations. Just allowing yourself to move into a state of relaxation and openness. And in this relaxed state, take this opportunity to imagine what you desire in your life. do you desire? Imagine what the most wonderful day in your life would be like. How would you want your life to feel like? A life that is joyful, full of purpose and satisfaction. Imagine that each day would fulfill your desires. A life that you've been moving towards since you were a child. So what would you like in your life? You might not always know what it looks like, but you're going to know what it would feel like. Imagine it's the one special day. This one special day in this most incredible life. A day that you've been moving towards for months, weeks, years. Imagine yourself waking up in the morning. What would your first thoughts be? Remember, this is the most incredible day in your best life ever. How do you feel? Do you feel gratitude? Are you thankful for your bed, duvet, pillows? As you start to move your body, notice where you are. Where are you? Where did you wake up? Who is with you? What's the lighting like in this as you wake up in this room? What are the smells? What are the sensations in the room? Do you feel a breeze blowing on your face? What does your morning practice look like? Are you making a cup of tea? Are you taking time to meditate? Are you moving into samasana or stretching? Are you showering, bathing, or swimming? What do you eat? What are the beverages that you're drinking? How are you dressing on this special day? What do you choose to put on your body? Are you putting on business clothes? Yoga clothes? A gown? Or are you going to stay in your pajamas? Remember, this is going to be your most exciting day ever. What are you wearing? And where are you going to go? Are you leaving your home? wake up in another dwelling? Or are you staying at home? How are you going to get there? Are you driving yourself? Are you taking a taxi? Walking? Transit? Or are you going to be picked up in a town car or limousine? Remember, this is your dream. So allow yourself to imagine, allow yourself to dream big. And don't try to fit this dream into your present reality. Allow yourself to dream big and allow your reality to fit into your dream. Are you going to your career or your job? To a function or an event? Are you going to an event that is celebrating your accomplishment? Where are you going? What are you doing? And who is with you? Are you going to a gathering? Are you with your partner? Family? Friends? Children? An audience? Right now, by visualizing, you are creating what you want to see your life to look like, what you desire for yourself. You are setting the stage, the image. You are planting seeds, and you are showing, asking the universe to provide the opportunities for you to create this. Often as human beings, we have a tendency to go against our natural gifts and talents. Our upbringing, culture, religion, and limiting beliefs encourage us to not do what we are best at, but to instead do what society thinks we should do. We sometimes devalue our innate talents and believe it is as easy for everyone to do what we are good at. When we continue to ignore our inner guidance, we find ourselves unhappy, bitter, longing for change. Often we find ourselves struggling with what we are doing as the universe continues to point us in the natural direction. Your intuition is guiding you. What does it want for you? The first step to getting on our path is to listen to our internal voice and to respond to the universe that is knocking at the door. So continue to allow your imagination to create this ideal scene for your life. What are you good at? What have you been longing to create? What is the knowing that you have? The knowing that you are here for greatness. If there were absolutely no restrictions, what would your life look like? What would you do? How would you serve? Notice and acknowledge any negative voices that may come up. Recognize them, and then release them now. Release them to bring your awareness back onto your ideal scene. What are you doing? What is your state of being as you move through the world? Who is with you, and how are you working together? What are you creating? What tools and resources are you utilizing to their fullest extent? What changes are occurring both within and without? What effect are you having? How is your dream affecting your family, your community, the world? What does your support system look like? Again, what is your state of being as you move through the world in this effective and alive way? What are your surroundings? What is the overall tone or feeling? What spiritual practices are part of your everyday life? Who's on your dream team? Notice how your body is feeling as you imagine this experience. What are the emotions? Pay particular attention to sensations in your body and your overall energy levels. Visualizing, or go to your journal and just write down anything that jumped out. Journal what you saw, what you are creating. So our intuition will push us to our edge, that when we follow our internal guidance, we're going to get challenged. We're going to get pushed out of our comfort zone. Because it's when we're in that comfort zone that we're we're unhappy, we're disengaged, we're shutting down, and we're, or complaining, right? And so it's when we start to follow that internal guidance, it is going to push us to our edge. And that's why it's so, so important that we find the tools. That's why you're here, right? And so the number one is meditation. For me, it's a non-negotiable. I meditate every single day. It's like this non-negotiable part of my day. And for years, people would ask me all the time, well, how do you find time to meditate? And I would say to them, well, I find time to eat lunch every day, because if I don't eat lunch every day, I get cranky. I get hangry. So if I don't meditate every day, I get cranky, right? So I absolutely have to meditate. And I believe that, and I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but I'm going to say my opinion about it anyway. But, I believe that it only takes one person in the household to meditate to shift and change the entire energy of your whole house. So if the mom is meditating every single day, that energy, your energy is going to change, and it's going to spread out to the children, and it's going to spread out to your partners, and then the kids are going to take that energy out into the school, and it's going to shift the energy in the schools, and it's like this ripple effect that by one person in the household meditating, it is going to change. And if you get everybody meditating, that's even better, because it really does affect everybody. So, like I said, if I don't eat, I get angry or get frustrated or cranky, and if I don't meditate, I get frustrated and I can't cope as well. So meditating is number one. Yoga is, I live yoga. It's not about doing yoga, it's about living yoga. So part of what yoga is, like out of Patanjali's 8 limbs of yoga, only 1 is really on the asana, 4 is on meditation. So there's so much more to yoga than just the yoga postures, which is what we, in the Western world, we often think of what yoga is. So bringing in all the aspects of yoga. So yoga is diet, trying to eat as clean as possible, because the foods that we eat affects our moods, and it affects our blood sugars, and it makes us, freak out or, crash. Exercising every day. To be able to follow our intuition, we need to be working as optimally as possible, right? We need to be able to move through the stress of stepping out and going into that vulnerability, because our intuition is moving us into a vulnerable place, right? Like writing a book is really freaking vulnerable, right? Doing a workshop, teaching, doing any of this stuff, it puts us into this vulnerable place. Being creative, being happy is a vulnerable place. Brené Brown, I just heard her say that just recently, that being joyful is one of the most vulnerable places to be, because people think there's something wrong with you and they want to go into that negative, right? And so just even being joyful and happy is a vulnerable place. So to move through that vulnerability, we need to work as optimally as possible. So diet, exercising, breathing techniques, using our breath to slow down our breath. I was in a workshop very similar to this, and I remember saying, you know how your mom always tells you to take a deep breath when you're a kid? And later she said to me, my mom never said that to me. And I thought all moms said that, right? Because my mom would always, she still does. Just take a breath, take a deep breath. And, right, so taking deep breaths, we know scientifically it relaxes our central nervous system. So, all types of breathing techniques, and I have a couple in here for either relaxing us, so we can use the breath to relax us and calm our central nervous system, or to charge us up and give us energy, to fire us up and put us into action. And then sleep. Getting an extra half hour of sleep a day can make a huge amount of difference. And then having support. I have always had a coach. I've had a coach. Well, I don't know. I did it way before it was even cool or popular. It was like when I split up from my first husband. I'm coming up to 22 years married to this husband. So it was a really long time ago with my first husband. So, after I was going through that separation and divorce, I started getting a coach. And so, but I really attribute I couldn't figure the word. Attribute me moving into this vulnerability of writing a book and all of this because of having a coach. Because it's I talk to her every 2 weeks, and so hiring an intuitive coach, and I don't believe in talking the talk without walking the walk. So I am a coach, so I do have a coach. So intuitive coaching, and then just getting that weekly support. When I was writing the book, the company I went through, they would call me once a week. I had a guy, and he would call me for 2 minutes, 5 minutes once a week to make sure I was still writing, and that kept me going. So having that weekly support was so helpful. So writing down what you commit to, and because this is an important part, like, are you committed to following that internal guidance, and how committed are you? Like, how committed are you to living on purpose? A lot of us really want to live on purpose and follow our intuitive guidance, but then when, you know, it gets messy, and our head mucks up with us. So I want to pull everybody a card. And so when I designed this deck of cards, instead of doing, if you've used oracle cards before, usually they're past, present, future. The way I designed this deck is body, mind, spirit, so that they all stay in the present time. And the mind one is what I think is often our biggest our biggest obstacle is our mind, because we get in our own head and we get in our own way, and so many of us, our energy is we keep all our energy in our thoughts. Like when I do intuitive coaching and counseling, I always do it, even though I do it I can do it over the phone, but I usually do it over Skype or over, now it's Zoom, because I can see the second that they're going into their head, because they start to look up, and right, and I want to be able to watch that so that we can keep coming back into the body, and how does it feel. And so using affirmations, I don't have it on here, but affirmations are another thing that is huge, huge, huge for me. And shifting all of that negative self-talk into something positive. And it's not about spiritual bypassing. Do you know this word, spiritual bypassing? Right, where we la and joy and all happy, through our problems, right? The truth is that we are going to have ups and downs. We are going to have shit happen. We are going to get mad and pissed off, and we need to have our friend that we can call, or somebody to reach out to. So we don't want to spiritually bypass and just pretend to stay in the good, because that's what we know we're supposed to, but to move through the discomfort and to get back to the good. Alrighty, so I want to draw everybody a card, and so I'm going to go through. I'm going to start on this side and go through. I'm going to ask you to tell me your names again, because I think I know everybody's name, but I just need to know your name for real, like for sure. I was doing a chakra balancing one time with somebody, and she had messaged me, and I emailed her back, and I don't know, somehow I changed her name in the email. Like, it was, I don't know, Ashley, and I called her Natalie, I don't know, something like that. And she never corrected me. Like, these emails are going back, and I was using her wrong name. And then she came, and I'm balancing her chakras, and I'm like, not getting anything from her, right? And because I was using this name that I had in my head. And so then I said to her, so what's your middle name? And she told me, and I said, okay, well, so I can't remember how I said that, but anyway, I finally found out that wasn't her name, because I'm like, and I'm like, oh.
Go by a different name?
Yeah, like, so do you have a nickname, or like, just wasn't getting anything from her, right? And it was like really funny. So she said, no, I don't know, you gave me the wrong, you emailed me back saying my name was wrong, but I didn't correct you. And I'm like, oh, okay. That's so Canadian of you. Alrighty, so I'm going to start on this side and go through. And so tell me if you want it for body, mind, or spirit. So let's connect to the cards first. Let's do another. Actually, you know what? I'm going to get you guys to ask a question. And you can either do body, mind, spirit and a question, or just body, mind, spirit. But because we can be more interactive, you get to ask a question. So just formulating the question in your mind. All right, does everybody have the question? Okay, so let's go ahead. What's your question?
Yeah, just about a future, if there's a future relationship.
Okay, and so your name again?
Krista.
Krista. See, now I thought you were Krista. So good thing I did that. All right, so Krista, and about a relationship. So for body, mind, or spirit?
I think I'm gonna go with spirit. Yeah.
Okay. So you tell me when to stop shuffling the deck. I did already. Sorry. All right, this is your card,
Okay.
Goddess Pose. So this is about staying connected to the divine feminine. So moving into the feminine energy, we all possess, and actually Maddie talked about this last night, we all possess both masculine and feminine energy. And the way I like to look at it is women major in the feminine, minor in the masculine, where men major in the masculine and minor in the feminine. Does that make sense? And so you want to move into this feminine energy, this goddess energy, which often we think of in our society as less than. We've been taught this, right, over lifetimes, that the feminine energy isn't as important as the masculine energy. And masculine energy is aggressive, and it's the type A personality, and it's making lists, and it's being a little bit more aggressive, and right? And so we want to move into the feminine energy, into the second chakra, where you're more into the flow, you're more creative, and you're bringing in this this more loving, kind, flowing energy. And it's not a pushover, right? So can you say any negative things that you feel about the feminine energy?
No, I just sometimes, like, I am very independent, so I feel if I'm not being assertive enough, or maybe, I don't know, aggressive is probably the wrong word. So sometimes I do dismiss, I guess, being like sort of that more playful, or, and then the other one sort of overtakes, because I'm like, well, I've got a job to do. I need to be the boss in this situation. So, like, there's definitely needs to be balance there, right? Just because,
Yeah, so I'd like you to take some time to really dive into what the feminine boss woman, like lady boss looks like, boss lady looks like, right? Like, what is the bringing that feminine energy to that? When I was running my yoga studio, I always said I run my business like I run my business like a lady, like a woman. And people, well, what does that mean? Like, I'm like, if you're going to try to rip off your yoga instructor, then go for it, right? Like, I had, people would pay, and there was never ever an issue. I only ever had one person not pay for their session of yoga, and she ended up becoming a yoga instructor, paid me like a year later, and ended up teaching for me, right? So, right? And she's the only one that ever missed, and honestly, I honestly feel like she forgot until we re-invoiced her. So I feel like it's like go into this feminine energy where you're not pushing against the water. It's like going into paragraha, where you're grasping. So when you're in water and you're reaching for something that's floating there, and you reach for it, it goes farther away. So if you go into this flow and you go, this is too much of a struggle, fuck it, I don't need it, right? Like, I'm just gonna relax, and I'm just gonna go and wait till the next thing comes that does really feel right, like the computer, right? Until it feels right. And so moving into this feminine energy. And one way you can do it, and I feel like it might trigger you a bit, but one thing you might do is like, just bringing more beauty into your wardrobe, into your household, like bringing in flowers and, putting on lip gloss, like just kind of, and it's not shallow, it's not ego, it's not any of that, but it's just kind of embracing that feminine energy a bit. And bringing it in as like, there's a lot of value in the feminine energy. There's a lot of value, and this is what we're moving into. It's now we're going to start, in the next 2,000 years, we're going to start to value the feminine, right? And that's what's happened, is that we value the masculine as so much more. It's so much better, right? To be, right, hard and core and all that. But if you can move into that feminine, it's going to take a lot of pressure off of you. And you're going to find the dude. Because we don't want our men, we don't want to be the men. We want to value the feminine and bring in this feminine energy into relationships, and so that he can be the man and I can be the woman, and we can value both of what we're doing, because it's both really, really important. One day I bought a bouquet of flowers, and my daughter was in the kitchen, and it was on the table, and I think one of my sons was there as well. I have 2 sons and a daughter. And my husband walks through from the garage, going with him through the kitchen to the bathroom, like to the bedroom, bathroom, whatever, to change. And he stops, and he goes, "Oh, you bought yourself some flowers." And he stops and smells them. And I said, "No, I bought the household some flowers. Aren't they beautiful?" And then, that's when he stopped. He goes, "Oh, yes, they are." And he stopped and smelled them. And then he left and walked down the hallway. And my daughter looks at me, she goes, "Good one, Mom." Right? It wasn't for me. It was for the whole environment. So that's what I'm talking about, just bringing that feminine in. All right. Thanks. Okay.
So Kendra.
Kendra.
I guess my question is just career guidance
Okay.
about the mind.
The mind?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, you tell me when to stop, but I'm getting,
Okay, stop.
actually it's this one. Cat and cow. So, did I show you guys the other part?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So cat and cow. This is really, so it's trust and surrender are the words. Trusting and surrendering. So into the spinal movement, right? And so in yoga we believe the back is our spiritual body, right? The kundalini energy goes up. It's the snakes that go up the back. And so this is really about going with the flow and getting that flexible back. And getting that flexibility, and then trusting and surrendering, which always sounds so much easier than it really is. I think you're kind of getting the divine timing card here. Like it's a little bit about divine timing, but you need to trust that you're always being guided, and then surrender to what it is. And if disappointment comes up, kind of recognizing what am I disappointed about? Like, do you feel disappointed?
I don't know.
So,
Sure.
so going into your expectations of what's going to come, and instead and releasing those expectations, and just surrendering to the gratitude that this is amazing, and I trust that whatever happens is supposed to be, and I'm going to be guided to the right place, to the right person. It's all going to be, because it always has been. It always has been. So now it's like to move into the spinal movement though, and like really doing lots of cat and cow to get that flexibility in the spine. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hope that helped.
Yeah.
Jill.
My question is, actually, is this the time that we should be moving from Grand Prairie?
Okay.
And I'll go with mind.
Okay. And then I think you should write down an affirmation too. Like that goes with that. Like I trust the flow of life. Like I surrender to. Sorry, Jill. Okay. Sir Namaskara, sun salutation, prosperity and abundance. Sounds good to me. What more do you need? What more do you need me to say? Yeah, it's saying that there's prosperity and abundance, and I think whatever you guys do, I think it's the right. And so the mind is what? The mind is getting in the way in what way? Like, we're supposed to stay there,
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess really it's to decide, how much is enough, and should he just sell his shares, and should we just be done with semi-retired, but should we just be done totally?
Right, and so the moving would be that you don't sell it, that you keep it, right? Like you keep the business?
No, like, I don't know, either way, like, because we can still have it, it's not even there, right? We can still keep it and move.
Right. Yeah, so
Or just keep it, or just, yeah.
I think it's kind of telling you that it's a good thing, right? Like there's so much abundance, and that I think it's telling you that it's the right time.
My perfect day was not, I was at an ocean.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Tanya.
Yeah.
And my question is, where should my focus be in my own business right now?
Okay. What's your business?
I have several ideas. That's probably the way. I've always had a passion in education and computer technology and helping new businesses. And I also do cancer coaching, nutritional consulting, so health and business.
Okay. And can they be put into one business?
Well, my tagline that kind of comes to me is preventing disease within your body and your business. So I can help someone, well, healthy mind, healthy body,
So did you say mind?
Spirit.
Spirit? Okay. Crown chakra, connection, wisdom, and spirit. So this is telling you to meditate on it and that you're getting intuitive hits and messages all the time of what the right answer is to do, what the right answer to do is. I'm feeling like I don't want to say it. I'm feeling like it's more the computer. And I don't know, I don't really understand either completely, but it feels like the computer. It feels like the computer to me. But Spirit is saying that you're going to get the intuitive hit. And it's not, and it might not be really, it might be just touch on both of those. Like it almost feels like, there's this story, but then there's always been this passion, right? So what have you always been doing? What are you always good at? Like what are you good at? And what do you keep going back to doing?
Helping do businesses. I used to do business consulting before. I've been working with someone helping people build online businesses through sales funnels. So I've learned a lot.
Yeah.
And but the health has always been there. Like I want to help people going through cancer, but I haven't done a whole lot with it. But I get really excited about helping people with business.
See, I think it's going to be a part of that. Like you can bring the healthy stuff into it, like, right? Like if you're going to be running a business, like doing business like a woman, right? It's like bringing that into it and doing it more in the feminine energy and with the health and the wellness that, if you're working with a client who's stressed out and, losing hair, and I have a friend right now who's running a business and she's got alopecia, and I'm like, what the hell? That meditating, right? You can bring that aspect into it. And you can work with people in a more feminine, gentle, healthy, holistic way. That's what I'm getting. And I'm thinking that while you're meditating, you're going to get really clear. Like you're going to get like this intuitive hit. Like last night I was sitting here and all of a sudden I wrote down a new program in my journal. Like I just got it hit, like a hit. So you're going to get that. It's going to come like that. Spirit's here for you. Okay. Audrey. I remembered.
Somebody was calling me Diane for how long. And I never corrected her either. What do I want? I don't know how to ask this. I don't know. I guess the best way would be just to, what message do I need to receive right now?
And so body, mind, or spirit? Spirit. Okay. Vision and gaze, focal point, drishti. So in every yoga pose, we always have a place to look, to rest our eyes. And so this is like resting your eyes. And it's on the vision. So what came to you in the vision?
What do you mean?
Like when I took you through that meditation.
Oh, travel. I would like to do some traveling.
Okay.
But I never seem to have the finances to do much traveling. So this is what I would like to do.
Well, this card is telling you to keep your focus on the big picture, like keep your focus on that, like keep your focus on this is the desire is to travel, and then I think it'll start coming to you. It will just start, opportunities will come. Yeah, like I feel like it's just kind of setting the intention that I'm going on this trip. Like this is what's happening. And it'll just all make sense and fall into place. I think it's like starting to look for the trip. Like where do I want to go, and who am I going to go with, and how's that going to look, and when are we going to go? What time's the best time to go? And all of a sudden it'll all just fall into place. And even like create a whole vision board around it. Yeah, awesome. Thanks. Nicole.
And I've been contemplating taking a specific 500-hour teacher training, so I don't know that I should do it.
If you should do it. Body, saw I shuffled them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so should you take the teacher training? Yes. This is saying yes. This is like move into that goddess. Like this is empowering stuff. Teaching yoga is so empowering. Like it's what our world needs more of.
But it's like, do I need more of that?
Do you need more training?
Yeah, I mean, that's the question right there.
What doors will it open with the training?
That's what everybody's taking their 500 now, right? So that's what it's like. Should I actually? I don't know. Like obviously, it makes you a better teacher, right? Like, but it's like I have a habit in my life of getting caught up in certification, so I.
And are you teaching?
Yeah, I'm teaching for 6 years.
Okay. And how often? Like a lot? Like are you teaching quite a bit?
7 classes a week.
Okay. So I would embrace this card and bring in the feminine into your classes. I would really move into the goddess part of yoga and bring that in so that it and change it up that way to make yourself stand apart, to make it a little bit different, to make you does that make sense?
I think so.
So you got goddess card, and so you really need to be teaching yoga, right? And we really need all the aspects of yoga, but more than ever, we need the feminine part of yoga, right? That's being taught and brought into the classrooms. Not so much asana, like yeah, asana is awesome, but bringing in all the different aspects of and all the teachings that you already have learned into yoga. Like every class bringing in new teachings that are all yoga, which is you've already learned them all in the 200, right? I mean, you go deeper into the same philosophies and ideas. I mean, depending on the 200 hour you took, but you'll be going into the same philosophies and ideas. But I think studying and learning and growing and bringing that into your classrooms is what's going to set you kind of apart. Yeah, because that's what we need more of. Awesome. Thanks. Okay.
Marissa. Having a hard time trying to formulate this into words in a question form, but I think it's around kind of trying to get out of my head and more to a spiritual practice, looking for guidance in that. And then around that, I have always been very strongly guided to help and assist others, but knowing that right now is the time to focus on myself. So I'm thinking around how to shift that awareness and leaving the distractions.
I got it. And body, mind, or spirit?
I want to say spirit because I think I'm trying to get out of the mind.
Okay. Cobbler, opening and transformation. Yeah, so this is saying that you are already doing it.
Okay.
Like, and I imagine working here is a great like influence to support that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just staying open. I mean, even taking this workshop is you're opening up to new ideas and new ways of looking at things. And you know, you may have heard all the same, like everything I said, but before, but it's just a different way of. You're in a different place, hearing it, and I'm saying it in a different way than other people have said it. But it's just that opening and being open to the transformation and continually asking spirit. Like, this is what I want us to do, is to have an ongoing conversation with spirit all the time. You get in the car, which way do I go? Oh, I should go down this road and this road, and or show me a bunch of green cars, and then all of a sudden you start seeing green cars. Okay, you've got 2 hours to show me a quarter. I want a quarter to show up. And then when you recognizing it, then really, when you find it or when it happens, validating it and celebrating it and just keep moving into the flow of that. And yeah, like shooting your friend a text, ask for a quarter, just found a quarter, right? And then like really playing around with it. Yeah. And just keep being open to it. Awesome. Thank you. Okay.
Kelly,
You guys need to connect. Tell her to take her computer back, and then you tell her.
See what I mean? I'm like, do I take my computer back because I did a new job? Oh my god.
Oh. There really are 54 cards in here.
Yes.
You got goosebumps?
Yeah, like.
So this is telling you to stop worrying about all the details. Look at the big picture, right? So here's the big picture out here, and we get caught up in all the details, right? Every time you stub your toe, it's a reminder to stop worrying about all the details. Every time you stub your finger, is that a thing? I don't know. You hurt your finger or whatever. It's a reminder, like either one of those things for sure is a reminder to stop worrying about all the little details. Did you say for mind? Yeah, because what happens? Yeah, because our mind worries about all that shit, and it gets in our way all the time. And so I want you to keep going to the big picture. And I'd really like to see you do a vision board. What is it, like from your vision that you did the meditation? Like, get that on a vision board. Like, this is what the focus is. This is the vision. And I'm not going to worry about how it's going to happen. I'm going to follow all the guidance. I'm going to follow that. Okay, now I've met a new friend who's at this workshop, and we can text each other. Like, not that you have to be best friends or anything, but I'm just saying, right? But you can connect in that way. Like, there's no mistake that you're here. Both of you are here, or well, all of us, right? That we're all making connections. But yeah, no, it's keep your gaze on the big picture and don't let your head get in your way and worrying about all those little details. And nothing is happening to you, it's happening for you. Like even the shop thing. Right? It's not, why does this keep happening to me? It's like, oh, what am I supposed to get from this? I guess take my computer back because it's not fucking working. This is not working for me. I can go buy one next week if I.
Well, it turns out actually it's just a connection with shop, so that's why I was there 5 times.
Oh, okay. So it really was
So
shop.
I'm like, do I take my computer back still? I don't know, something's telling me like, whatever.
Hey,
Start all over again.
Yeah.
I've been really scattered lately, so it's been a really crazy week. What do I want to know? I guess mind, first of all, and relationship.
Okay. I'm just going to take that shuffle. Plow, slow and steady. So this card, this isn't my favorite card. This is not my favorite card. It's, I don't like it when, I'm like, aww.
Yeah, I've been single for 14 years, so slow and steady is pretty much where I'm at.
Where you been? Yeah, so it's telling you that, but the thing about plow is that seeds have been planted, right? And so I always like to think, okay, in the spring we plant the seeds, and then they come up and they're just like little tiny twigs, but we need to keep nurturing them. And so many of us go, it's not working anyway. I don't have any tomatoes on this plant yet, so I'm going to pull it out. Right? And so we have these ideas, and then we abort and we pull the plant out before we let it nurture and grow and produce tomatoes. So you've planted the seeds, continue to plant the seeds where you want to, again, going back to the vision, what is it that you're wanting to create, and allowing yourself to plant, like to really put yourself out there and plant the seeds exactly where you want them to go, and then nurturing them and looking after them. And so by what I'm saying about nurturing is that we don't just leave it, like, well, you should see some of my garden actually looks like, because I just left it. And it's a big, fat mess. So you don't want to just leave it, because you want to keep nurturing it and growing it. So but what I mean by nurturing it is following the guidance that comes, and like following whatever comes up. Go, okay, yeah, I'm going to do that now. I'm going to follow that guidance, and keep doing that. And then I want you guys all to really watch for signs. So all of these cards are for all of us, right? That's why we got 2 repeat cards. It's because we came here together as a circle, created this circle, and they're all for all of us. So I think this planting seeds one is really for all of us too, is to really keep nurturing it and letting it and growing it and giving it sunshine and fertilizer and water. They need water. Who knew? My husband knew. Watering them and then letting them grow, and so that they just keep nurturing. And what did you say it was for? Body, mind, or spirit? Mind, yeah. So then affirmations. I think it's really, really important that we tap into the affirmations so that it does. Like we have 70,000 thoughts a day, and 90% of them are negative. I pull different numbers up every time I quote that, but it's close to that. Like we have so much negative self-talk. And then, like I said, watching for signs, animals, repetitive numbers, 55, 44, any numbers that are coming up, dimes. I find dimes everywhere. Yeah. Okay, so that's your husband. He's dropping a little dime, right? That's my grandpa. He gives me a dime all the time.
I got a container like this that I had.
Yeah. So it's not the same dime, right?
No.
No. Okay, so we're at time, and I just want to end with a meditation. I do kind of feel like I want to tell you my sign story. Do we have time? Do you guys have to leave? Anybody have to leave right away? All right. It's a recent story, so it's not in any book or talk. And this is the one that Ashley wanted to hear that I didn't tell her. Yeah, that was you. So it was just a few weeks ago, June. I got up in the morning, and my husband was going to do yard work, and I thought, I got a text from Old Navy. Did they text you? They text me. I don't know why. They text me every Saturday that there was some sale, and I thought, okay, well, I'm going to go check it out. So I took the recycling in. So we live on an acreage, so I was outside. I was at home, and I loaded up the recycling. I'm heading into town, and I decided to phone my daughter. She lives in Calgary, so I'm talking to my daughter on the phone, and then I'm like, what the hell? What the hell is that? What is that? What's going on? Or what is that? And she, what? And I hit my brakes, and in the ditch was a moose. And she was the most beautiful, beautiful moose, like this chestnut brown, beautiful color with the antlers, and we get some mangy looking moose in the wintertime, but we don't see a lot of those, but pretty mangy looking. So I pulled over into the middle of the road, so she crossed behind me, and then she stopped behind me and waited for her baby to come, and they crossed together. So I'm driving in, and I turn the corner, and I'm like, oh my God, Chloe, there's a bald-headed eagle. And like a bald-headed eagle flew right in front of my car and took off. And again, I've never seen one in our area. So I'm like, okay, well, I get off the phone, I drop off my recycling, I go to Old Navy, or the Gap, and I try on a bunch of clothes, and I'm just, ugh. And so I decide to go home. And so my husband's out, so I'm gonna go for a walk, and he's out chopping down trees. So I'm standing there talking to him, and a yellow butterfly flies over my right shoulder and lands on a purple flower in front of me. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty, Instagram photo, done, you know? So then I go for a walk. So we live in a cul-de-sac, and so I did one loop of the cul-de-sac, and I thought, well, I'm too hot, I have a gray jacket on. So I went in the house to get a black jacket, but it's thinner. And so then I did another loop, and then I go across our road, and we always snowshoe on this little swampy area all winter, and then right beside it is this runway. Our neighbors have a plain, and it's a runway of bush on the side. So I jump in there. I had to climb a fence. So I'm in there, and I'm walking along, and I had my headphones on, and I'm listening to Brené Brown, Braving the Wilderness. And I'm like, I get this intuitive hit, take out your headphones. And I'm like, okay, so I take out my headphones, and as I'm wrapping them up, I stop at this opening along the bush to look out at this swampy area, because there was geese nesting there. And I looked out there, and there was no geese there, and I'm like, oh, that's weird. And so I walk over about 6 feet away, and I'm going to set up my phone to take a photo. Instagram, right? Yoga every damn day. So I'm setting up my phone to do this, and I leaned over my little setup, and I went to hit the timer, and I hear something behind me, and I look over my shoulder, and right 2 feet, about 2 feet from where I've been standing, is a black bear. And I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, and I start running, across the runway, and in my head, like you're talking about all the different levels of your brain, right? So I'm in fight and flight, so I'm running, in my head's going, stop running, stop running, stop running, stop running. So I stopped running, and I turned around, and I thought there was a mama bear. He wasn't that big. So I'm instantly thinking, here I'm running into the other bush, and there could be the mom right there. And so I start yelling and waving my arms. And so the bear was still in the ditch, or not the ditch, but the bush between the runway and the swamp, and runs away from me. But now, that was my escape route. That was my road, right? Now I have only bush all the way around me. So I go back into the center of the runway, and I start like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And I had my phone. So I knew my husband was at home, but his cell phone was in the house. So I phoned it. I went to phone it twice, or went to phone it, and I phoned him twice. But every time I went to phone, I would hit the red button, and I kept hanging up on him. And I'm like, oh, stop doing that already.
Nightmare.
So finally I got through twice, and he didn't answer. So then the bear comes out of the ditch and stands up and looks at me. And I was waving my arms, and so then I went up onto my tippy toes and leaned towards her and yelled even louder. And my husband said later, I don't think you're supposed to make eye contact. And I'm like, yelling, right? And the one thing I noticed, she had she was jet black hair, but right here around the heart chakra was this chocolate brown circle. And I remember thinking, oh, look at that, that's crazy. That looks like a bullseye. She went down, she went back into the bush. I phoned a friend, I got a hold of my husband, and then the bear came up onto the runway and whipping across the runway. So my friend drives, and she gets there first, because I said, I went right into coordinates, where I was, come and get me, Darren's home, can you go and see if, because we were so close to home. She said yes, so she came, and then I phoned the house, and Darren answered, so he came, and so they both pulled up in their white vehicles, like, white horses, right? That knight on shining or whatever it is, armor. So they both pulled in, and so when the friend was driving towards me, she actually saw the bear cross the road. And so they get out and they're discussing this, and I'm way down the runway. So Darren goes like this to me. So I start walking towards him, and I'm looking this way and looking that way, and waving my arms and yelling, Marco Polo. It's what we do when we hike. I go Marco, and he goes Polo, and that's our thing. And so I'm doing this and yelling, and all of a sudden I look down and I see a hawk feather. And I swoop down and I pick it up and put it in my sweaty little palm and keep walking and yelling. Like, why? We don't know. And so finally I get to the fence, and he gets me out, and I'm just like shaking from head to toe. I'm in, stress, and, So we drive down the road, and we see the bear, and I take photos, and we go home. So then I just can't stop. Like, and I know somatically, don't stop. So I don't even go into the house. I'm just doing laps, right? And I'm talking to all my kids and doing laps. And finally, Darren came out and said, I need to go to town, come with me. So we drove to town, and all of a sudden he slams on the brakes, and 3 deer come up onto the road. And I'm like, okay, this is enough nature for one day. Like, get me out of here, move me back to the city. But what I've really taken away from it is it's a massive spiritual shift and spiritual encounter is what it was. And I am going, like when I look at all of those animals, it's like a totem pole. And so I don't wish that on anybody that day, but be aware of the animals that you see. And you might see them in nature, you might see them when you're out and about, but you might all of a sudden dream about an animal, and then you see a picture of it. And then all of a sudden, you see it all different places. And I am constantly seeing bears now ever since that experience, seeing bear signs and bear paws and all of it, right? So just always watching for the signs, and then taking the time to interpret it, taking the time to meditate on it, and to really figure it out. Alrighty, so I just want to close with a little bit of a meditation. If you want to bring your vision up to your heart chakra, you can. If you wrote that down. Again, closing your eyes, taking a breath. All right. Spirit, help us to shift our prejudice, our superstitions, our fears, and our limiting beliefs. Remind us to release our own inner critic that tells us we aren't good enough, that we don't have the resources, education, or we don't matter enough. Release all of those limiting beliefs. May we release all shadows that make us feel shut down, distant, or disengaged. We ask you, Spirit, may we do whatever is necessary in order to bring fruition to our life's purpose. Give us the vibrancy, the vitality, and the energy necessary for us to wake up, show up, and do what needs to be done so that we can manifest our lives in the most open-hearted of ways. Spirit, bring us the people, the situations, the books, resources, and tools that we need to make our purpose happen. Let us make a commitment now to follow all inner guidance offered to us, and so that we can trust our intuition. Allow us to be open to the abundance of the world, our instincts and imagination, as well as all of the grace, the light, and the love that is embodied in our inner knowing. Allow our inner knowing, our intuition, to be the catalyst for us to step into our passion. Ask yourself, if not you, then who? If not now, then when? Just going to take one more nice deep breath. Exhale this breath out. And now let's inhale for one more Om to seal this intention, this vision. Deep breath, inhale. Thank you all so much for coming. I really, really appreciate it, and I really enjoyed it. It's so much fun. And namaste. Have a great evening. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
So when you were saying, like, I'm just wondering about, like, sort of some of the ways to work on our intuition.
Yeah.
So when you were saying, like,